I'm Kat, and this tutorial is how to make this double chevron friendship bracelet. It's best if you've already made a couple of chevron bracelets so you've gotten the hang of this, but basically all this is it's two regular chevron bracelets that are kind of like tied together in the middle. So if you've already done the chevron friendship bracelet pattern, then you know that it's really just two candy strips that are stuck together, and that makes it a chevron bracelet. So if you've never made friendship bracelets before, make sure that you watch my video on how to tie the friendship bracelet knots first. Then I recommend that you do a candy stripe bracelet and then do the chevron bracelet before you try this one. You can attempt it, but you're just gonna mess it up. Yeah. So yeah, make a couple first and get the hang of it, and then you can move on to this one. And on this I show you how to attach a couple of buttons to put it on. So instead of just tying it on, you have these little loops right here, and those just attach to the buttons right there to hold the bracelet on. So yeah, I think it's pretty darn cute, and I hope you enjoy making it. So the first thing you need to do is cut your string. I'm going to be cutting 4 strings of each of these colors. Since I'm only using 2 colors, I'm going to do 4 strings each, and they're going to be you could do 60 to 65 inches long. If you have a wider wrist, always cut more string because you don't want to do all that work and then come up short. But I'm going to do these 60 inches for myself. I'll be cutting 4 in this color and 4 in this color. And once you've cut all your strings, you're ready to get started. So you've got all these strings, and what you're going to have to do is divide them up into 2 sides. So I want to have 2 stripes of green, and then 2 stripes of peach, and then 2 stripes of green and 2 stripes of peach. And your bracelet's going to be divided into 2 different sides. This side is going to be 1 chevron, and this side is going to be another chevron. And then as you work on the individual chevrons, you're going to tie them together in the middle. So this side, you're going to start exactly the way you would start a regular chevron bracelet. So find the middle of your strings. You're going to try and get all of your ends to line up. So there are all my ends. I'll hold those, and if I pull on this end of my loop, I've got the very middle of my strings. So once I've found the middle, I'm going to tie a loop. Don't make it too big. I think about a little bit bigger than your little finger. However you finish the other end, you could tie a couple of, or do a couple of braids, or you could attach a button. If you want to use buttons to secure your bracelet, then make sure that this loop is big enough for whichever buttons you're going to be using. So set that one aside, and then do the same thing on this side. There you go. So you've got your 2 loops tied, and that's how I'm starting this bracelet. Now I'm just going to clip them into my clipboard up here. Lay your strings out in a mirror image of one another, like so. So this is just the left side of my bracelet so far. And on my right side over here, I'm just gonna do the exact same thing. And you have to make sure that you lay out your strings in the exact same order on each side, because when you join your bracelets, you want the stripes to match up on both sides of your bracelets. Otherwise, like this side of your bracelet will start, if you put these peach strings out here on this side instead of the green ones, you'd have your 2 peach stripes on this side and then your 2 green stripes, and on this side you might have your 2 green stripes and then your 2 peach stripes, and that would just be crazy. Don't do that. Take your outermost left string and you're gonna do a forward knot onto the one directly to the right, This is the same string. And then you're gonna do another forward knot on that next string to the right of that first one that you tied onto. And take that same working string and just keep going. And remember, each time you tie these forward knots, the strings switch places. So this string started all the way over here, and now it's all the way in here. Now you're going to do the right side of the left chevron. So that would be right here. And you're going to be doing backward knots. So this is the string I'm working with first. And I'm going to be tying onto this string. And again, if you haven't done the regular chevron bracelet, just really save yourself the heartache. Do that one first, please. It's not going to work out if you don't. And keep going, do another backward knot onto that first peach string next to it, whatever color you're doing. And now that one is in the middle. So you've joined the center of your left chevron right there. Can you see that? You've done one little arrow right here. And I'm gonna do one more row on this side, just because it's gonna make it smoother when I attach my two chevrons in the middle, if I have a little extra space to work with right here. So do the exact same thing you just did. Switch place, and you've got two rows here on the left. Now you can start working on the right side of your bracelet. So we're just going to ignore that left side for now, and we're going to do the exact same thing on the right chevron. So starting from left to right, start doing your forward knots. There's one. 2, 3, and so that's the left side of your first row. And on this side, do the opposite. Start doing your backward knots, working from right to left. One. There's 2. There's 3. And join it in the middle. One more knot. So there's your first row, and go ahead and do one more since you did 2 rows on your left chevron already. If you're doing just the 2 colors like I am, you have to be really careful that you don't mix up your strings. Otherwise, I mean, yeah, it won't look too bad, but if you look closely, your bracelet will kind of be bunched in weird, awkward places. So just take your time. So now you've done 2 rows on your left chevron and 2 rows on your right chevron. You've done 2 rows, that'll give you a little bit of room to work with it up here when you're putting it on. And get your bracelets right next to each other, because they're basically just 2 separate chevron bracelets right now. And go ahead and tie one knot there in the middle. It's easier if they're not like pulling away from each other. And now they're together, like one big happy family. Okay. Now from this point, you're gonna do the exact same thing you've been doing. So I'm gonna shove this, all this stuff on the right out of the way and just kind of like ignore that right now and just focus on the left side of my chevron. And you're gonna be doing the exact same thing that you were already doing. Working from left to right. Doing forward knots. There's one row on the left, and now you start on the right, doing backward knots, working from right to left. There you go. One more stripe. Now we're gonna switch over and ignore this side over here. Separate our strings. And work on this chevron. So I'm starting on the left side of my right chevron.
I'm not a star, more like a black dwarf, but you shine brighter than a sun.
On all of my friendship bracelet videos, but the string that you're tying on with is what I call the working string, and the string that you're tying on to is what I call the base string. And if you don't hold the base string tight, your bracelet's gonna end up looking real funky. So make sure you do that. So before we go any further, you can see we've done one more chevron on each side, and we have these two strings dangling here in the middle. Take those innermost strings, and you can do a forward knot, you can do a backward knot. Doesn't really make too much of a difference. And you're gonna join those two in the middle just like you did with that one right there. And again, we are going to continue working on the left chevron.
I'm not a rock, more like a grain of sand. You are marble. The rock.
Now, can you figure out what happens next? You've just done one more row on each side of your chevron. And before you can do anything else, you've got to join the centers again. Tie that knot. Doesn't really matter if it's backward or forward, just as long as it's tight. And so on. I think you can figure out what happens from here, so I'm just gonna speed it up.
That you want a different hand, but of course, I know it's true that I'm just not right for you.
Now once your bracelet is long enough to fit around your wrist, like so, on this one, since it's got the double chevron, what I did was I started doing this row and I did just 2 more knots here, and then I started doing this row and just did 1 knot on each side and 2 knots here, so it kind of gives you almost a straight edge at the end instead of these 2 points. So that's going to make it a bit easier and tidier to finish off your bracelet. And at this point you can do this a couple of ways. You've got your 2 loops here at this end, so what you can do is put it back in your clipboard, and if you wanted to, you could separate these strings and then do 4 braids on this end, and that way what you would do, this would make 2 braids, and then you'd put the braids through the loops on the other side and tie them. Kinda like this. And then your little braids would just kind of dangle off your wrist, and it would be something like that. But instead of doing the 2 braids, I wanted to do something a little bit more interesting this time. So what I'm going to do is divide these into 4 strings and try and make, or 4 groups of strings, and try and make it symmetrical. Now I've got some tacky glue here, and I'm just going to put a little bit on my fingertip and smear it over the ends of these strings, just to get them to stick together. I'm going to do this on each of these little groups. Then once those have dried, come in with your scissors and just cut the very end off and cut it at a bit of an angle so that you have a tapered tip there. That's going to help you out. And make sure you cut it on the area where the glue is, because if you cut it further off, then you're going to have a frayed end, which defeats the whole purpose of the glue thing. Now I'm just using these little gold toggle buttons. You can use different types of buttons to attach to your bracelet, but these are the easiest kinds, especially if they have a large loop right here. And I just like these with the colors that I'm using. So I'm going to put this group of strings one direction through that bead, and then the group next to it going through that same loop going the opposite direction. Then I'll pull that tight. I'm going to kind of flip this button over this way because this is the wrong side of my bracelet right here. And I'm going to tie just a regular little square knot to make sure that it's secure on there. And pull it really tight. And now I'll trim those loose pieces. And since I did it on the side of my bracelet that's the wrong side, it doesn't really matter that you've got those little teeny tiny fluffy bits there. But just to make sure that that knot is good and strong, I'm gonna add a little bit of glue. And that is not going anywhere. And now I'll do the same thing on this side. So now you've got your two buttons on this side. And just let your glue dry for a little while, and there's your finished bracelet.